Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Plotlines. I'm your host, Connor, and today I have a very awesome guest with me, Father John Lovell, co-founder of the Coalition for Canceled Priests, and we're going to be talking about his upcoming conference. But first, if please like, share, comment, and subscribe so more people know about this episode as well as the conference. And it allows us to beat the algorithm because the algorithm does not want us to be known about. And if you like this video, you want people to know about us. So make sure you comment and subscribe, as well as like. And also, yesterday I released an episode with my friend Aditya. He was a convert from Hinduism to atheism to Protestantism, and then finally to Catholicism. So if you're interested in that, go check that out. But Father Lovell, it is a great pleasure to have you back. You were on previously. We talked about your story, and that was pretty awesome as well. So welcome back to the show.
Connor, thank you so much for having me. And can I just simply say, I'm very impressed with Plotlines, not only with your ability to interview, which is outstanding, a lot better than mine, but also just the caliber of guests that you're able to get it on. I mean, it's something that I always try to watch, if not live. I always try to watch as soon as possible when you come out with an episode. So thank you again for having me on.
I appreciate that, Father. So for people who don't know about your conference, would you mind giving a pitch for why they should go to the conference?
We are celebrating on June 23rd and 24th of this year our second anniversary of founding of the coalition. We are also celebrating the 1-year anniversary of the overturning of Roe versus Wade, which was announced by Dr. Peter Kwasniewski last year at our conference in Beloit, Wisconsin. Last year's conference, we entitled it Finding Hope in the Desert. We liked that title so much that it became the title of my podcast, Hope in the Desert. This year, after having extensive conversations with Joseph Gallagher, who heads our communications, as well as Jesse Romero and Tom Oglesby, who's on the board of directors for the coalition, we decided that we wanted to go with the title of A House United, because what we have is a lineup of speakers, all Catholic, all solid, all Orthodox, that want a better church, and they see that there's a problem. Here's the thing, though. They don't necessarily agree on everything, and that's all right, and we have to realize that. I think what a lot of people realize is that on the left, they easily put aside their little differences to unite. And conservatives, traditionalists, whatever you want to call it, those on the right, we like to bicker and fight. And that's not just in society, that's also in the church. And so what we're doing is that we're coming together and we're saying enough is enough. Okay. Now we've heard people say this before, unite or die, or unite the clans. The problem with those is, well, a lot of people, especially in the United States, don't like using the term Klan for obvious reasons, because it kind of gives imagery to the Ku Klux Klan.
Yeah.
But what happens is that a lot of people that say that, they say unite the clans, but what they mean is unite the clans around me, or unite the clans except for this group and except for that group. Okay. Now, realize there are a lot of people out there that are just mean-spirited people. I get that, all right? But what we're looking for are Catholics that are serious in their faith, serious in getting to heaven. These are the types of Catholics that we want to unite. And this is why we're calling it A House United, so that not only can the laity come together to hear great talks from excellent speakers, but they can meet several of the canceled priests that they've been helping these last 2 years. So we're having this celebration June 23rd and June 24th, the Feast of the Nativity of St. John the Baptist, who after Our Lady is our primary patron. We're doing this in Rosemont, Illinois, right next to O'Hare. It is a 2-day event, but we have tickets available not only for 2 days, but if somebody says, well, I can't get off of work on Friday, We have one-day tickets available for Saturday. We have one-day tickets available for Friday. We want you to come out and meet just these wonderful people that we have coming together. We're going to have Abby Johnson kicking it off. We're going to have John Henry Weston closing it on Saturday night, and a plethora of speakers in between. I already mentioned Dr. Peter Kwasniewski, but we also have Dr. Janet Smith. We also have Doug Barry, Jesse Romero, Michael Hitchborn. We also have a canon lawyer with the St. Joseph Foundation named Philip Gray. He's not only going to give a talk, he's going to have a booth, basically, where priests or laity can come up and just ask canonical questions, because it's very confusing sometimes to people. It's like, I don't understand why this priest is out of ministry. And so we're going to have a canon lawyer available there. Liz Yor is going to be there, who's probably our biggest supporter and one of our first supporters. Eric Sammons is going to be there. Anthony Abate from Avoiding Babylon is going to be there. I don't know if anybody from the Midwest is going to be able to understand him. But, I am interviewing him. I'm interviewing him for next week's show. So we're going to have a very, very good time. And it's a wonderful way to kick off Midsummer's Night, but also just to kick off the traditional season of summer. And it's a wonderful time of year to do it. And so I encourage everyone to come. And for those that are a little bit leery that, well, I don't want to go to Chicago. We're not in Chicago. We're in Rosemont. And anyone who says, well, there's not a difference. No, there is. I'll take you to Rosemont, and then I'll take you to the back of the yards, and you're gonna be able to tell the difference very quickly. So,
yeah. So that's a great pitch, though. I'm not really sure about Anthony from Avoiding Babylon. That he's something. So it's dangerous when he's around. He might just, as long as you don't have Matt Fradd there, it will be fine, I think.
I would love to have Matt Fradd. I would love to have Patrick Coffin. I would love to have Christopher Check from Catholic Answers. I would like Jimmy Aiken to be there. I would like all of these people to come together, because you know what's happening, Connor, is that so many times, and we've experienced this. I've personally experienced it, but as an organization, we will have people that don't want to associate with us because they're like, well, you might be upsetting the bishops. This bishop might be upset about this, and this bishop, and we can't have that. It's like, look, this isn't about bashing bishops. This is not what our job is. Our job is to help priests and to point out an injustice that is going on in the church right now. And if that upsets bishops, well, too bad, because their brother bishops are canceling priests that are desperately needed in the church right now.
Yeah, I would definitely love to have somebody like Matt Fradd there too. That'd be really cool in the future. But yeah, so what was your inspiration for sort of the original conference? Because it was also pretty close to the foundation of the coalition. Is that correct?
Yeah. So last year's conference, Finding Hope in the Desert, we put it together in less than 7 months. Craig Holly, who's co-founder with me of the organization, back in, I want to say, October of 2021, we were both just getting over COVID. We got COVID at the Catholic Identity Conference in Pittsburgh, and it knocked us out for several weeks. And we got on the phone and we said, hey, it would be a great idea. We need to have an anniversary event, because in June of 2021, we quickly put together a fundraiser and founded the organization in order to raise money for Father Jim Parker, who's another canceled priest from Rockford. And we quickly came together in Lombard. It was a one-night event. Father Altman, who wasn't canceled yet, he was just a couple of weeks away from being canceled himself. We did not know it at the time. He came down on short notice. We had 1,000 people show up at the Carlisle in Lombard, Illinois. And we thought, this is a movement that we need to always remember. This is a day that we always need to remember. And so we decided that we're going to have an annual conference celebrating that. And then, as I said earlier, first anniversary, what happens that day? Roe v. Wade is overturned. And we have powerhouse pro-life speakers, Abby Johnson, Dr. Janet Smith, John Henry Weston. So we are basically celebrating 2 events. And it's a wonderful thing. And I always like to tell people this. Canceled priests are always praying for and always supporting canceled babies. And we have to keep that in mind. We're standing up for those, for the voiceless. And it's so important that we do that. And when speaking of the voiceless, is that when priests sometimes have to defend themselves, because we do not get paid a lot. Granted, we don't take a vow of poverty, but we still don't get paid a lot. When we get canceled, sometimes our bishops cut our pay completely or give us mere pennies. My bishop only gives me $1,700 gross a month. In the state of Illinois, you cannot live on that. I mean, rent alone for a decent apartment in the Chicagoland area is $1,700 a month, if you're lucky to find it at that price. So we wanted to have an organization where priests could go to and say, I don't have to worry about paying a canon lawyer. I don't have to worry about finding a good canon lawyer. If I need an attorney, we help them with that. We help them do that. And a lot of times what people say is, well, what's the difference between, question I get all the time, and I always answer it. And for those that are familiar with me, I'm sorry that I keep saying this, but I always get asked, well, what's the difference between a canceled priest that did something wrong and a canceled priest that did nothing wrong? And it's simply this, that if you did something wrong as a priest and you got removed, that's not being canceled, that's justice. That's when the bishop actually did something correct. He didn't try to hide it, all right, at least we hope not. He actually did remove you. But a canceled priest is one that gets removed because the Karens in the parish objected to something that he said, or he stood up and said, yes, males are males and females are females, or he stood up for the traditional mass. It is something that the priest was defending, that he should be defending as a priest, that got him, quote unquote, in trouble with his bishop and got removed.
Yeah, I know priests who can't touch certain subjects from the pulpit, or they'd be canceled as well. And it's sad that that priests have to fear for that, but it's also sad that priests don't have the courage to say it anyways. And a lot of the canceled priests have said the things that they're not supposed to say, but are true.
Absolutely right. And I'm hoping that our organization could also be for those active priests to say, you know what, I am going to stand up and say what needs to be said, because now I know I have an organization to go to if I do get canceled. And I want to say, especially to the priests that are afraid of saying or touching on a subject, speak the truth in season or out of season. Woe to those priests that do not. All right. We have to do that. We have to feed the flock of Christ that is entrusted to us. And if we fail at that, woe to us for that.
Yeah. It's definitely a difficult situation being a priest anyways, no matter what, no matter rain or shine. I mean, it's a difficult vocation to have, and it's not something to be taken lightly.
It is not something to be taken lightly, because unlike marriage, where a couple chooses themselves, yes, if they're open to the Holy Ghost will lead you to the spouse that God wants for you. But there is a possibility of a mistake being made. When it comes to the vocation to the priesthood, I don't choose the priesthood. Christ chooses me. He calls me to this vocation. I have a choice to not accept it. But again, woe to me for not accepting what my vocation is and what Christ's calling is. And people have to realize this. This is a very difficult life. And not just because we're celibates. Okay, it is a difficult life because priests are called to be spiritually and sometimes physically on the front lines, defending their flocks.
Yeah. Can you talk a little bit about how important community is, and how the conference is really a antidote to the lack of community?
I was talking with several canceled priests from my diocese, and the Diocese of Rockford, there's over a dozen priests. Again, did nothing wrong. We're just sidelined because the bishop doesn't like us, sad to say. And I've been canceled now going on 11 years. Many of the priests in Rockford that have been canceled are nearing 10 years, if not longer than me. And we said, At the very beginning, we were so much in shell shock that we couldn't believe what happened to us because we're public figures. We get removed. It's a very shameful thing to have happen to you because of all the other scandals. Most people will not give you the benefit of the doubt. They just assume, well, a bishop wouldn't remove you unless you did something wrong. I mean, there's a vocation crisis. So, I mean, there's no way that the bishop could be that mean or that vindictive. Yes, there is. Okay. Many bishops are actually very mean, vindictive little men that don't know how to be a father, don't know how to be a shepherd. Okay. They're bureaucrats. All right. They are completely dependent on their lawyers. And they frankly don't care about the priests that are supposed to be not only their spiritual sons, but co-workers in the vineyard with them. Okay. And so they would rather look at priests as servants. Hey, just shut up and do what you're told. Just obey. Doesn't matter what I tell you. If I tell you to cover up McCarrick, you cover up McCarrick. All right. And we've had a few priests come to us for help because they were very vocal about the cover up and what many of the bishops who are still in ministry did in order to hide Theodore McCarrick. Sad to say, but you had priests being removed because they were calling out bishops, rightly so, for doing that. And so we come together at this conference for these canceled priests, especially ones that are recently canceled, that are still in that shell shock, so they could see the outpouring of support from the laity. They could see how many people from around the country come together and say, we love you, we need you, we want you to be the best priest possible. And one thing that we also do here at the Coalition is we want to make sure that the priests have some form of fraternity. Now, you get a dozen diocesan priests, secular priests, in a room, you're going to get a different answer of what fraternity should be among priests. Okay? Some think that maybe we should live together and kind of like almost a semi-monastic community. Some believe that priests should live alone, but at least get together from time to time. What I can tell you, Connor, is in the last 60 to 70 years, with the decrease in vocations, dioceses, especially dioceses like the Archdiocese of Chicago, where I'm originally from, even though I'm a priest of Rockford, you would have, even in a small parish, 2 or 3 priests living together and having at least some form of community. Not saying it was perfect, not saying that there weren't problems there. But now what you have is you have across the country and really across the world, diocesan priests living like bachelors. And we're not called to live like bachelors. Okay, bachelors are people that are in the single life, which is at best a temporary vocation. I hate when they call the single life a vocation. It's not. It is that time that you're discerning what God is calling you to. Celibates need to have some type of communal, fraternal gathering. And so what we've done is we've made sure to purchase a house, to have property available for priests if they need long-term living, if they need short-term living, if they just need a place to get away or go on retreat. They now have that available to us here in Northwest Indiana. We were hoping to get a big Franciscan property that in Northwest Indiana. We decided not to do that, even though thanks to our donors, we raised the money for it. We decided not to do that because there were just so many problems on the physical plant itself. We decided to look for another property, which we did. And we're still thinking about maybe getting something bigger later. But we also like the idea of having a safe house, having a place where the bishops don't know where it is, where priests can get away, priests can relax and unwind. And we're thinking possibly even that we start having more of those across the country. And I know we always, probably weekly, we get 2 or 3 requests from people offering their homes, offering a place to stay around the country. And if the persecutions of the church, especially of priests, start to get severe in this country, and we already see the persecutions with the COVID restrictions, then I think having those safe houses around the country are going to become very vital so that people can be ministered to. Because, ladies and gentlemen, I'm telling you this right now, they locked you out of your church once. What's going to make them not do it again? All right. I think COVID was just a trial run to see if they could get away with it. And in a lot of ways, they have gotten away with it, sad to say.
Yeah. For everyone interested, at the end of this episode, I'm going to ask Father Lovell your questions. So please put in the chat any questions you have for Father Lovell, and then we'll get to that at the end. It's I mean, it must be a terrible struggle being a canceled priest, especially given the fact that people won't give you the benefit of the doubt, probably because of so much rightful, or the scandal, from all the different, drama with the McCarrick and scandals and stuff like that, because you also probably have to deal with the sort of inner conversation of like, did I do something wrong? Like, why is this happening to me? Like, it's, second guessing yourself. So, is that really a part of a lot of the experience of a canceled priest?
Oh, absolutely. The one thing that the diocese wants to do, and it's not just Rockford, it's the modus operandi of most bishops. They want to send you to a facility like St. Luke's outside of Washington, D.C., or St. John Vianney Center outside of Philadelphia. All right. They want to send and pay these facilities about $1,000 a day. They want to keep you there for 8 months, by the way. $1,000 a day. Do the math, ladies and gentlemen. It's the money that you give to the dioceses that are paying for that. They want to send these basically psychological prisons. They want to send you there. They want to send them a whole stack of papers that they don't share with you. And they say, here are all the problems with Father Lovell. And you will say, well, wait a second. What problems? I have a right to know what people are saying about me. And their response is, no, sorry, we can't share this with you. And so it makes the priests think, well, there must be something I did wrong. I mean, I remember my first year of being canceled, I was thinking the way the diocese was treating me, I thought the police are going to show up any moment. Who's making false accusations against me? And it wasn't until I was canceled in 2012, it wasn't until 2016 when the Vatican ordered the bishop to show me my file. I had to fly my canon lawyer in, drive up to Rockford, which was about 2 hours away from where I'm living. And they give us, they didn't want us to have any electronics with us, no phones, nothing. And my canon lawyer said, no, I'm taking notes with my computer. Like, no, take notes with a legal pad. He said, no, I'm taking notes with my computer, period. They tried to put all these rules on us at the last minute. And we were there for 7 hours just going through my file. And what I came to discover, there was no accusation. There was no allegation. They're claiming that there is. They didn't put it in the file that I was supposed to see. And then I discovered when Rome did finally rule, they did chide the bishop a little bit for not following his own procedures. But they basically said that a priest can be removed by his bishop for any reason at all. But it could only be temporary, but they never put what temporary means. And so here I am at 11 years, 5 years after that ruling, still waiting for the bishop to tell me what I need to do to be put into ministry. And it's funny, I have a former student who's now a priest of the Diocese of Rockford. He was ordained in 2019. And he told mutual friends who I also taught, who I keep in contact with, he said, well, all Father Lovell has to do is apologize. And my response is, apologize for what? The bishop reducing my pay, me having to live for years at a poverty level income, having to go out and work as a server in several different restaurants. Is this what I should be apologizing for? And finally, I thought, after getting over the shock of being canceled, being out in the workforce, and then starting to see all these different priests coming together, I thought, no, enough's enough. We're going to unite. We're going to bring the priests together that need help. And we're going to have a coalition of the laity Because remember, you said it correctly. The coalition for canceled priests. So often people say coalition of canceled priests. No, it's not a coalition amongst the priests. It's a coalition amongst the laity that are coming together to support the priests. All right. Whether it is famous canceled priests like Father Altman, or whether it's a canceled priest who says, look, I don't want to be in the spotlight. And trust me, I get that. When I was first canceled, I didn't want to, I wouldn't be able to do what I'm doing right now. It's after years of prayer, it's after years of study that I thought somebody needs to stand up. And thank God for Father Altman, who is a speaker at our conference. He's always been at our events, for being that voice. And, you know, oftentimes people say, well, I just don't like Father Altman's tone, or I don't like this about Father Altman, or I don't like this about Father Lovell, or I don't like that. All right. No priest is perfect. All right. I'm always trying to improve. Every morning I wake up, my morning offering is simply this: Lord, make me a better person than I was yesterday. Help me get to heaven better. All right. I'm always trying to improve myself. And I hope we're all trying to do that.
Yeah. No, that's beautiful. And yes, there, you know, you can have little differences and stuff like that, and little critiques of people, but at the end of the day, sort of, you're either on the side of God or you're not.
Exactly. I mean, that's what it comes down to. We could almost sum up a house united with what you just said, Connor. Either you're on the side of God or not. God does not want his priests to be sidelined when they've done nothing wrong or nothing to merit being out of ministry for 11 years. All right. And so for all those that say, well, you must have done something. Okay, well, where's the police? Do background check. Show me where I've been arrested. Show me where I've done something wrong. All right. Because clearly then there's negligence on law enforcement. Okay. If the bishop, if you want to seriously take the line, and this is going for everybody in Rockford that's listening that wants to support Bishop Malloy, if you want to actually think that the bishop is actually doing everything in his power to better the diocese, tell me why 20 years ago in 2003, there were 12 men ordained for the Diocese of Rockford, and in 2023, there's only one. Tell me when I joined the Diocese of Rockford why there were 56 seminarians, and I think they might have a dozen right now, a dozen, if that. Bishop Malloy has ruined the vocation boom that his predecessor, Bishop Doran, who ordained me, and who didn't believe any of this stuff, by the way. When his vicars general and vicar of clergy started coming after me, this was in 2010 when Bishop Doran was still the bishop and probably one of the best canon lawyers, according to Cardinal Burke, that we've ever seen in this country. Bishop Doran said, this is nonsense. Father Lovell's done nothing wrong. Leave him alone. And so they sat and waited until they got a new bishop. And that's what happened. So I always tell priests, I realize you're in shock when you first get canceled, but you can't just stay silent, because the bullies are always going to be allowed to write the narrative if you stay silent. And this is what happens when people are going, well, the bishop wouldn't really keep him out of this ministry this long. I mean, he's not that cruel. Yes, he is. And it's not just Malloy. It's most bishops, sadly. Sad to say.
Yeah, it's interesting. There's quote unquote a vocations crisis, but I think that a real problem is that people maybe want to pursue their vocation, but have no interest in joining seminaries at diocesan levels because of these things. I mean,
one thing I can tell you, I was ordained in the Novus Ordo. I was always told, work hard to make the people better and catechize them to stop receiving communion in the hand, catechize them that if they can kneel to receive, catechize them to make good confessions, catechize them to have better music. And what I've discovered, and what we all discovered because of the COVID crisis, they don't want you doing that. They don't want traditional liturgy, whether it's the old Mass or the new Mass, right? They want to force you to do things, because that is what there's the business for. So I can understand while young men are not attracted at all to this spirituality of feminism, the spirituality of ecology that they're pushing on many levels of the church right now, from the Vatican on down. They want traditional masculine liturgy. They want traditional masculine spirituality. And so what do you see? You see the traditional orders. You see the traditional communities like the Fraternity of St. Peter, the Institute of Christ the King, and dare I say the Society of Pius X. They're booming. Okay, they're building seminaries. They don't have enough room to house them. But how do the bishops take this? Oh, that's just a small minority. They don't want that. And in one way, they're right. They are a small minority. But if you go to a traditional mass and you look at the median age of people going to that mass compared to a Novus Ordo on Sunday, guess in 20, 30 years, they're not going to be so much of a minority anymore. And people have to realize that. So I always encourage young men, I say, find a traditional community, whether it's a Society of Apostolic Life like the Fraternity of St. Peter or the Institute of Christ the King, or a traditional order. I said, try to avoid dioceses as best as you can. And some say, well, but Bishop Strickland is good. And Bishop Strickland, in a lot of ways, is very good. In fact, Connor, I don't know if you've had him on the show.
Yeah, I have.
He's a wonderful man. One day, Bishop Strickland will retire. Don't go to a diocese based on the current bishop. All right, that's the problem right now. And you want to go to a seminary that's going to give you solid Orthodox training. And I didn't really get that. And fortunately, for the first 8 or 9 years of being canceled, it gave me the opportunity to read, to build up a library, and to be ready to be the best traditional priest that I can be. And I always want to say to those that wonder why I keep banging the drum on support of the traditional mass, is because when you attack the mass, you attack the priesthood. They are linked. We see that on Holy Thursday evening. Jesus Christ created 2 sacraments that day, the Eucharist and the Holy Priesthood. And we can't back down from that. We need to fight for that. And so when I say to those that say, well, I'm fine with the Novus Ordo, nobody's stopping you from going to the Novus Ordo. What I am saying is that you have to support your fellow Catholics who want the traditional mass. Because if you don't think they're going to come after you next, if you want a traditional looking Novus Ordo, think again. They're going to come after you. They want you to worship like Father Flager. They want you to worship like Jimmy Martin. That is what they want. All right. That is what they want. They do not want anything that comes close to traditional Catholicism, period. Sad to say.
Yep. Reminder, leave questions for Father Lovell. We'll do that right at the end of the episode. We'll take your questions. And I just want to highlight the speakers and sort of the details of the event, June 23rd and 24th, Hilton Rosemont, and you can see the lineup. It's very impressive. Abby Johnson is a very well-known pro-life warrior. Jesse Romero's. Do you remember that time when Jesse Romero was kind of like accidentally run into by Fox News in some was it some restaurant of some sort?
Vaguely. Please tell me the story, though.
It was basically one of those they were going around asking about who do you support, for either primary or some sort of elections, and I think they're talking about the Hispanic vote or something like that, and of all people, they run into Jesse Romero in in some diner, which I thought was very funny, and they were taken aback by what he said, so I thought it was very funny.
I'm always taken aback by what Jesse Romero says. In fact, if Jesse and Anita Romero ever need a private chaplain, I'll give this all up to go out to Arizona and be their private chaplain. They are a great couple, great evangelists. And when I when people ask me what the laity need to do, they need to be more like Jesse Romero and Anita Romero, his wife. They have a ministry together that is moving mountains. And for me, Jesse is always one of the one of the best people to have at a conference like this. He's smart, he's intelligent, he knows what the count is, and he's able to bring about so much devotion in people and get them going. It's great to watch.
Yeah, he definitely has great energy, and it's hard to find that kind of energy in a speaker. Uh, Dr. K is well known. He's been on the podcast previously. Father Altman, we talked about. John Henry Weston. I'm familiar with his work at LifeSite, and he's a powerhouse amongst sort of covering different topics and the news and stuff like that. Dr. Janet Smith, I remember, was on Pints with Aquinas as well. I know she had a debate with Father Gregory Pine on what was it? If lying is ever not a sin, I think that's what it was. Did you ever watch that?
I watched that debate, and I know both of them, and I am more of a Thomist on this, so I think I probably line up more with Father Pine on this. I also studied at the same school he went to, Dominican House of Studies, but Janet isn't. She knows what she's talking about, and she's an excellent debater. And again, this is what it comes down to. I had a very famous head of a Catholic apologist group basically dismissed Janet Smith as like, well, she thinks lying's okay. I said, no, that's not what she's saying. She's saying a lot more. But, Connor, if I could also just highlight on my show this week, we're coming out with an interview with Brian McCall from Catholic Family News. He's probably one of the kindest, most intelligent men I've ever met. But a lot of people don't know him too well. And maybe that's a good thing for him. But, he's going to be one of our excellent speakers. We already talked about Anthony, kind of poke fun at him too. But,
Yep.
Speaking, we have Raymond D'Souza, not Father Raymond D'Souza, Raymond D'Souza, the layman, speaking. He spoke last year. David L. Gray coming. I always love speaking with David L. Gray, especially about the Freemasons and the infiltration that they've done in the church over the last 100 years, if not longer, actually hundreds of years. Father Scott Duvall, who's a canceled priest, also from Rockford, but who is head of our due diligence. He'll be speaking. And then Matthew Pleasy, wonderful young man who's made it his mission to evangelize on the importance of fasting. So it's not just the big heavy hitters. Yes, the big heavy hitters is what bring people in, but I'm encouraging those that are coming and those that are thinking about coming, look at some of these so-called smaller names. I don't think they're smaller, and realize that they're going to have some excellent talks, some really, really great talks. Then we're going to have the Lepanto Institute there with Michael Hitchborn. Liz Yore always has something profound to say, a woman deeply filled with her faith. And not only that, it's cross-generational, Connor. We have, and I hate using these terms, but, we have boomers all the way to Zoomers speaking and everybody in between. And we have millennials, we have Xers, we have just a wide range of people speaking almost every decade, from 20s up to 70s and 80s when it comes to our speakers. So, this is a wide range of speakers, and there's quite a depth to it. You're not going to really see a conference that's going to have basically an A-list speaker lineup like we do.
Yeah. So let's get to the questions. Well, before that, just FYI, these are 2-day VIP tickets, 2-day general, and 1-day passes. And did you say when's the last day to get the tickets?
We are trying to we're working with the hotel right now because obviously the hotel wants hard numbers so they can start preparing the food. And I get that. I've worked in the service industry for years, but we're trying to keep the, they wanted us to close it down Monday. And we begged them to say, look, we're still 2.5 weeks away. A lot of people are going to make the decision to come last minute. We're going to try to keep the page open as long as possible. We already have several hundred people coming. We max out at 500. We would love to be sold out. Okay, this is one of the reasons. And I do want to say too, Connor, is I realize the type of economy we're living in right now. Okay, $350, $250, even $150. That's a lot of money for a lot of people. It's a lot of money for me. I can tell you that right now. But again, when you look at our speaker lineup, if you look at where we're hosting the event, all right, it is not cheap to bring all of these speakers in. It is not cheap to get a venue at a good price. Wish it was, right? We're still cheaper than most other Catholic conferences. You look at Catholic Identity Conference, you look at the Napa Institute Conference, we are several $100s cheaper than both of those conferences. And those are big conferences with great names speaking there. I don't think they have the light up that we have, though. And it's so important because what you are representing here and what you're seeing when you come, what we're representing, excuse me, is the opportunity to see the priests that you're helping. And it will be all the priests there, no, because some don't want to come. They want to kind of still stay in the back, and that's fine. But we're going to have about a dozen canceled priests there for you to speak to, not just Father Altman and me, although I know everybody likes to line up to speak with Father Altman. And I always turn to him and say, better you than me. He'll get the line out the door, and he does an excellent job of remembering people's names. I thought I was good at remembering people's names until I became a high school teacher. And then I realized this is why we have seating charts. It took a while for me to get that. So I encourage people, we're going to try to keep that ticket page open as long as possible. We want to sell out at 500. We really do. We really want to sell out, and we're close. We're close. We only have about, I have to check because every day the number changes. We only have couple of dozen tickets left, I want to say, so we don't have many tickets left. So please don't wait until the last minute. We are not going to be doing a live stream simply because we would love to do a live stream, but it's so hard to do that not knowing the type of Wi-Fi that the hotel has, or even if it's going to be working. So we don't want people paying for live stream and then there's a disruption. So we're not doing that. And we have to realize too, Connor, we need to start getting back to normalcy. People getting out, mingling with each other. It's so important after all the COVID restrictions.
Definitely. I will be there. So if you want to meet me, that's also something that maybe you want to do. And you could do that at this conference. So let's get to questions. Joe Gallagher asks, what can Catholics in the pews do to prevent their beloved pastors from being canceled?
That's a great question. And I would say this. First, pray and fast. Encourage them not to be afraid to speak about the hard issues, and knowing that if you do get canceled, it's not the end of the world, all right? You have some priests like Father Heilman. Some would call him being transferred from his parish. He's not making it to the conference this year because his last weekend at his current assignment as pastor is coming to an end that same weekend. But they're making him an associate pastor again. This is a man who's been a pastor for decades now. Some would say that's kind of like a semi-cancellation. That's kind of a little punishment. I don't know if it is or not, and I don't think he would look at it that way. But some are looking at it that way, and some are commenting on it that way because he did a marvelous job at that parish in Pine Bluffs. And if you're doing something right, okay, you're going to be attacked. You might not be canceled like some of us completely, but you're going to rub people in the hierarchy the wrong way. It's hard to imagine that we're living in an age right now which the only thing that comes close is the Arian heresy. So I encourage people, fast and pray for your priests and encourage them to speak the truth no matter what's going to happen. That's all you can do, and let them know that you've got his back, come what may. All right. You know, the Karens are going to do what the Karens do to get rid of a priest. And sadly, the bishop and the chancery are going to listen to them before they listen to you. The vocation director, when I came into the Diocese of Rockford, told me one time when I was a seminarian, he said, John, he said, look, you can get 100 letters written to the bishop about you. 99 of them could be glowing letters about how everybody loves you. And one letter of somebody not liking you, the bishop will call you in on that one letter and not even mention the other 99. And why do we have this letter? Why is somebody doesn't like you? You know, so that's just the name of the game. Sad to say, I wish it wasn't. So I encourage people, just keep telling your priests how much you love them. And if you have a beloved pastor, make sure you invite him over for dinner. You know, don't stalk him, but make sure he knows that you love him.
Yeah. Mary McCoach says, so there isn't any type of diocesan appeals process to work through issues between bishop and the priest being canceled?
We have what's called hierarchical recourse to Rome. It is a canonical procedure. About 10 years ago, I had the choice of, according to my canon lawyer, to make a administrative appeal or a judicial appeal, basically take the bishop to court. We decided to do administratively through the Congregation of Clergy. Here's the problem, and we've heard from many canon lawyers, both in America and in Rome, that it's sadly rigged right now in Rome. And it's not just because of Pope Francis. This was happening under Benedict and John Paul as well, is the Rome wants to give the benefit of the doubt always to the bishop. Now, in one sense, one can make the argument that they should. They picked this man to run the diocese. But I also say, look, you have someone like Bishop Malloy, and he has a dozen priests out of ministry that have done nothing wrong. And at a certain point, you have to go, wait, there's a problem here. Maybe it's not the priests. Maybe it's the bishop. Maybe the bishop can't admit that he made a mistake. Maybe the bishop needs to realize that something needs to be done. But sadly, Rome doesn't want to handle this. You know, we always want to think of the Catholic Church as being very centralized, but Rome really takes a very hands-off position to there's one canon lawyer that argues in front of the Vatican Supreme Court. She said to a canceled priest, 30 years ago, I would have known the outcome of a trial before it happened. Now, she says, I'll have judges come up to me and say, you're absolutely right, and then rule against my client because they don't want to offend the bishop. It's sad to say, but there is a hierarchical recourse to Rome. Thanks for the question. It's just sadly it's rigged really against the priests, and it can be very expensive for the priests. I've got another reason why the coalition is here, but I still think that priests need to go down that avenue, because the more Rome sees problems with the bishop, the more likely, not guaranteed, but the more likely they're going to act. You know, there have been cases where Rome has ruled in favor of the priests. In fact, we're helping several priests that have won their cases. In one sense, I won my case. Bishop ignores it. We're still out of ministry. You know, I mean, when Rome says about my case, well, the bishop does have the right to take you out of ministry, but he can't keep you out of ministry permanently. But that doesn't put a time frame on that. It lets the bishop decide, well, it's only temporary. I'll eventually put you back in. Well, we're going on 11 years, Bishop. You know, that hasn't happened yet. So, but great question.
Yeah. It's just a shame that you can win your case and still basically lose. And Father Lovell, thank you for giving us your time for this episode. Please help us to get our message out to more people by liking, sharing, and subscribing and commenting below, because really, YouTube does not want this video to be shared very far, but you can sort of tell them, do it, you can make it harder for them to not do it. And to do that would be very very kind and much appreciated by, I think, both me and Father Lovell. So thank you, Father Lovell. I put the links into the website, as well as people can find your podcast on YouTube. Is there anything else you want to share before we go?
As I said earlier, we're going to try to give a 24-hour notice when we do have to shut down ticket sales. Please, we're 2.5 weeks out. We'd love to be completely sold out. It'll be a great support for the priests to do that. Remember, we're not making money on this conference, okay? We're trying to just break even to pay for it, just so that people could get this excellent content. And all I ask, Connor, is that you just keep praying for us. And thanks to your faithful audience. Please get your tickets soon.
Yeah. Mary said thanks us, and she's going to be keeping us in her prayers. So thank you, Mary, for that. And
Thank you, Mary.
God bless you all. Bye.